Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, 8:36 on the East Coast and 5:36 on the West Coast. President Trump saying the U.S. has struck another vessel carrying drugs off the coast of Venezuela. Trump posted this video on Truth Social of the strike, saying that 6 male narco-terrorists were killed in that strike. The president did have a message alongside that video here as you watch kind of everything play out in that unclassified video. You see his message there. He says, "Under my standing authorities as commander-in-chief, this morning, the Secretary of War ordered a lethal kinetic strike on a vessel affiliated with a designated terrorist organization conducting narco trafficking in the U.S. Southcom area of responsibility just off the coast of Venezuela." Intelligence confirmed the vessel was trafficking narcotics, was associated with illicit narco-terrorist networks, and was transiting along a known DTO route. The strike was conducted in international waters, and 6 male narco-terrorists aboard the vessel were killed in the strike. No U.S. forces were harmed. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Again, President Trump posting that on Truth Social. I want to discuss all of this, the implications, and really where we stand with this. Glenn Ignazio is a retired special operations commander and a national security expert. Thank you so much for taking the time, as always, to join us here.
Absolutely. Good to see you, Josh.
And Glenn, I did want to start by asking you here about maybe the legal authority that the U.S. does have when it comes to this, because that's a topic that has been brought up quite a bit over the past several weeks as we've seen these boats struck and the video released.
Yeah, it comes underneath the authority to use of military force, which was actually established after 9/11. And what it did was it basically presented that any organization, a terrorist organization, can be attacked appropriately or as required. It's just like what we've seen some of these terrorists that are taken out in Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan, and other places of the world. So when the terrorist when the cartels were identified as a terrorist organization, this use of military force has authorized that to take action against them. So that's what gives the legal precedent about it. And I know there's a lot of battles back and forth, but outside the politics, that's really what it stood on. And as long as it's in international waters, they're able to take that action.
That's what I was going to ask you about, the international waters portion. But what rules of engagement are likely enforced for things like maritime interdiction operations? And again, you're looking at that video right there on your screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the international waters is basically, you sort of open water. It's not in a particular zone or area that's declared by a certain country. Certain countries, it's usually 12 or maybe even 25 miles offshore that they count as their territory or territorial waters. So as long as it's not in that case, that's where they're able to take particular action. And so that's what they've done. The use of military force or the rules of engagement. So for them to put a weapon on target, which is what they're doing, there'd have to be the clear intent, which would be the drugs being taken into the United States. And then it would be actually identifying and verifying that these are members of that particular terrorist organization, basically the cartel.
How might a U.S. strike in or near the Venezuelan maritime zones influence U.S.-Venezuelan relations? Because that's something that's also been questioned as to whether or not there could be an issue there between the U.S. and Venezuela as this is happening.
Yeah, as right now, we don't have a really good relationship with Venezuela, as we've heard and seen. And so what happens is if, again, it is closer to or Venezuela feels that they're being threatened, like their airspace or their territorial waters are going to be threatened, where naval forces or air forces are too close to that territory. So that could escalate things where they may respond. But that would be the worst thing, is if closer it is to Venezuela or any other country, that's where it gets a little bit dicey. And so that's why they're staying more in international waters. But like I said, if we got close to those territorial waters or got close to the actual airspace, that's when things would be where Venezuela may respond to try to protect their country. And those are the things that you have to worry about, and you don't want to trigger anything in the future.
Does this have any sort of implications when you talk about the military and the broader aspect of all of this, when you're looking at counterterrorism operations, counter-narcotics operations? Does this kind of paint a picture of that and apply more broadly?
Well, it's definitely different because now we've gotten into the targeting of these narcotic or cartels, because it's been different. It's usually been against specific terrorists, as we've seen strikes in Yemen and so forth, and historically, excuse me. But this has been done by both political parties in different parts of the world over the years. So the idea that it's tying it to the narco terrorists is a different organization. So that's about the only, I would say, variance compared to anything we've done with terrorists in other parts of the world. So basically, they're just drug runners that are running drugs into the United States that's killing Americans, versus being an explosion or a terrorist action that, say, somebody in a foreign organization did before. So it really rolls it into one. It's the same thing legally, but it's a little bit of a different change because now it's against the drug cartels.
What about the level of transparency that's required? We have seen Secretary Pete Hegseth, as well as President Trump, posting these videos and actually letting us know maybe an hour or two after the strikes happen. So what level of transparency is really needed in a situation like this?
Well, I think this is something that's different, where a lot of strikes you've seen in the past would maybe be released as far as a text or a post. But the idea of being able to show this, that this is what's going on, I think that is transparent. Again, apolitical in the approach. But the idea that they're being able to show this and that this is happening, the biggest thing that would be important is that you're protecting the soldiers, sailors, airmen, whatever it may be, the resources and the source of information or intelligence, those are protected. So that would be the limit to the transparency. But this is different than what we've seen in other things that are outside of warfare. So, I mean, it's presented to the American people that action's being taken. But that's the best way I would say to put it right now.
My last question for you here, is this a sign that we are going to see more and more of these happening to where they do become kind of the norm?
That's a great question. And honestly, I think that this is definitely an action that's taken. Look, fentanyl was one of the number one killers of, I think it was from 17 to 30 something of adults and teenagers and so forth. So it is a killer. It has been a killer of Americans. So I believe that this is going to continue against these narco organizations, these cartel organizations. I think that one of the things we have to watch out is what is the repercussion from the cartels. We're seeing cartels actually post, hey, we're going to go after Americans in Mexico and so forth. That's going to be the interesting thing. And making sure that our intelligence is accurate, that there's no human shield, as you would say, on these ships. And that's what they've been doing, is verifying the intelligence and the actions. But I would be worried about the cartels and what they do here in America, because they have gotten over the border and set themselves in a lot of cities in the United States. So their repercussions would be concerning, but I think they may be understanding the reach of the American military. So that's what I see going on in the future.
All right. Glenn Ignacio, thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to join us and provide your expertise. Anything else we missed? Anything you want to add before I let you go?
Honestly, I think, Josh, is just one of those things is, you take the cartel warnings for what they are. A lot of times people will sort of, I'm going to Mexico on vacation. Hey, don't stop, but be aware, be alert, and listen to what things are going on. I think that's the safest thing. And it's great to be on with you, Josh. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your night.
You too.
And you are taking a look at some of the video again, unclassified, released by President Donald Trump a bit earlier on today on his Truth Social, saying that another strike of a drug-carrying vessel has been conducted there by the U.S. off the coast of Venezuela. He said 6 male narco-terrorists were killed in that strike. As we get more of these videos coming in, we're going to show them to you here on Live Now from Fox as well.